Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Maureen and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Happy 2022. We made it. I for one am so grateful that I'm here. Welcome to my first video of the year and I'm so excited. So let's go. So, since this is my first video of the year, it's only fitting that I talk about, you guessed it, New Year's goals, New Year's resolutions. Now, I for one have stopped making resolutions. Okay. The reason being that I would write my resolutions at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, I would write new resolutions for the next year, and most of the time I would notice that my previous year's resolutions were the same resolutions that I would have the next year. So clearly something was not working. So last year, being the beginning of 2021 and having gone through what I had gone through in 2020, I just didn't feel like writing resolutions. So I didn't. January came, I did not feel like doing it. And then February, when I felt like there wasn't that much pressure, I sat down and I said, okay, what are my goals for 2021? And that worked well for me because I had time to seriously consider what I wanted to do. Now for this year, I was debating like December, pretty much the whole of December. I was like, okay, should I be thinking about my New Year's goals? Should I be thinking about all the things that I want to achieve in 2022? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As I was thinking through that, my son kept asking me, Mommy, what are your goals for 2022? Right, and I kept telling him, I'll tell you, right? And the reason why he was asking me is because I kept asking him, what are your goals for 2022? Eventually, he wrote down his goals. Two of them financial, but the last one caught my attention. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. His third resolution was to change a character trait. Now, how many of us, when we're making our resolutions, actually stop to think about the things that we do or the character traits that we don't necessarily like and want to change? A lot of our goals are, well, if you're like me, when I'd write my resolutions, I would split them up, right? I would have my financial goals, my health goals, my spiritual goals, and all that. But I would hardly ever stop and assess my character, right? Assess things I would like, character traits I want to change about myself. So that obviously took me by surprise. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. And for you to be able to write something, you need to self-introspect. You need to know yourself. You can't change something that you haven't realized needs changing. Okay. So on his part, he wrote, He wanted to be patient, right? And I won't lie to you, I was surprised that he was even thinking about it, right? I mean, it's something we talk about a lot, but for him to write it down and acknowledge that it was something that he needed to work on honestly took me by surprise. So it got me thinking about myself. What are those things that I don't necessarily like about myself that I want to change? And are we doing the same things when we're writing our goals for the year? And are we being honest with ourselves about the things that we want to change? Because honestly, it is so easy to look at someone and decide what's wrong with them and to decide what they need to change. But do we ever actually stop and think about what we need to change, right? A lot of the times you find the things that we point out at others are the very same things that we need to change. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and they were complaining about someone else and you just couldn't help but think, girl, you are exactly the same way. But you can't exactly say it out loud, right? Because, self-preservation. You want to live to see another day. So it's really, really important that we self-introspect. Like this year, let's take time, yeah, to figure out those things about ourselves that we don't necessarily like. Not only that, those things that we don't even notice are problems. And the easiest way to know what to change is to have conversation with people who work with you, who deal with you, who interact with you often. Your spouse, your children, your friends, your siblings, right? And the hard part is actually hearing, okay? It's very difficult to hear something and not automatically want to go into defensive mode. Yep, been there. I remember once, well, not once, but I was having a conversation with my kids and I was telling my daughter to stop raising her voice. And she said, but mommy, you raise your voice. Now, in that moment, it's easy to be like, but I'm your mommy. I'm allowed to raise your voice, right? But what then am I teaching her? Okay, that's something I've had to work on, not raising my voice. Okay, and I used to think I was the most patient person. I used to think my spouse was the most patient person until we got married. And I had to work on patience. Okay, and I'm someone who's also very skeptical of people, and something I've had to work on, to learn to give people a chance, to learn to give grace. Okay, so I'm a work in progress. I have things that I need to work on. And as I'm not perfect, I know you are not perfect too. Have you taken the time to figure out the things that you need to work on, the character traits that you need to work on this year? So as you write your goals, as you write your resolutions, don't forget that part. Okay, as you are praying, I know a lot of people like to fast and pray at the beginning of the year. I pray And one of my favorite chapters in the Bible is Psalm 139, right? When David, I paraphrase, is asking God to search him. Okay. And I like to pray that often, right? I always ask God, search within me, right? If there's something that should not be in there, if there's a character trait that needs changing, bring it to the forefront. Okay, reveal it to me so that I can change it. So I also pray that that is going to be your prayer for this year, for God to reveal those things that should not be within you, to search you and reveal and bring to the forefront. At times, we don't take the time to change ourselves. We want everybody around us to change. We want our circumstances to change, but we don't want to change. The beginning of the year is as good a time as any to figure that out, right? I was having a conversation and I just realized that as people, when someone does something to us or to somebody else, right, we blame their character. But when it comes to us, when we do something, we blame our circumstances, right? For example, in traffic, someone cuts you off. You don't say, oh my goodness, they must be rushing to somewhere. You say, they are a terrible driver, right? You can, if it's ever happened to you, you tend to come up with a whole lot of things that could possibly be wrong with them as a person. But when you do that, when you cut someone off in traffic, what's the first thing you say to yourself? Oh my goodness, I was so distracted, or I was in such a rush, I didn't see them, right? You're not blaming your character. You are blaming your circumstances. So maybe next time when something happens and someone does something, take a moment, right, to think about it and not blame their character, but maybe give them a chance and think of their circumstances too. Or maybe when something happens and you are on the other hand, maybe don't blame your circumstances, but look at your character. I don't know. This is a new year, a new blank page, a book, if you want to call it that. And I am so looking forward to seeing what every day brings. So, until next time, enjoy making those goals and resolutions.